Right.
I don't know your political leanings. I know you, and I've watched you a lot on stage. Would you call yourself a liberal or a conservative?
I thought I was liberal until I moved out here. And then there's just like this psycho extra level of liberal, where it's just like they are as insane as some of the craziest people on like a right-wing thing. Like they're just totally extremists, and I find there's a lot of bullying out here, just as much labeling, but they're patting themselves on the back because they feel like the way they think everything should be is so right because they live near an ocean.
The ocean will do it there.
Oh, the ocean. The second you see the ocean, you start thinking you know things.
The ocean will do it there.
Oh, the ocean. The second you see the ocean, you start thinking you know things.
Do you know this one?
No.
Debbie Ocean, convicted felon. Her brother, Danny Ocean, more convicted felon. She was present on the night of the incident.
Ooh. So
you want to hit a jewelry store?
not exactly.
A diamond mine.
Yes, that's exactly right. Or
What? The Met.
In 3.5 weeks, the Met will be hosting its annual ball, and we are going to rob it. $16.5 million in each of your bank accounts 5 weeks from now.
that's a lot.
They've got every inch of this place covered. This is the most sophisticated security in the world.
How long did it take you to figure all this out?
5 years, 8 months, and 12 days.
Why do you need to do this?
Because that's what I'm good at.
Okay, everybody, let's get started.
Here we go.
Counting down. 3, 2, 1. Game on.
She did it.
Dear God, that was spectacular.
Silly as it's
We prepared for this.
We will not be the prime suspect.
Wait. Every time you move, you have to start from scratch.
What do you should do?
Turn it on.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not sure how I might have to cut this short just because I am short a lot of positions and prices are getting close to the point where I want to cover and go long. Like Bitcoin is like a little over $500 away from that. But I don't know if you're used to cryptos, but they're actually fantastic for trading because they move so much more. one problem is that it really is a 24/7 market. Like, unlike FX, where, like, you know, there's not much going on in the New York afternoon, and also not as much in the Asia morning. At all hours, something can happen in the crypto market, and so you have to be ready. I think it's much harder to day trade. It's a lot easier to just longer, like, swing trade it, because they trend a lot. So that's, hold on. That's what I focus on. Hold on. And so starting off, I look at Bitcoin, and you know, if you have any questions along the way, you know, you can ask. Just type it into Skype. Hold on. And certainly do ask questions. Okay.
Gmarket 스마일 배송.
Okay, so obviously, you know, one thing that's really important is going over your charts each day. And one tendency is to think, well, I went over yesterday and not much has changed. But there are little changes that can happen. And if you miss one of those little things, it can be very costly. That's where details really matter. And then also what it does is it gives you confidence to be able to take trades each day. So, like, you know, sometimes you might want to take a trade, but you hesitate because you lack enough confidence or conviction to take it. But if you had done your analysis really fully, you would have a lot more certainty about exactly what to do, and you'd be able to act more decisively, which is really important. Hold on. Okay. So obviously you had this big run up going into December. You had the start of this crash, and then you had, let me get a pen out. You had this consolidation. Okay, before, sorry, my mouse isn't great right now. Before this breakdown, that took it down to 6K. You had a bounce after that, and a move back down close to that level. Basically, this trend line seems to be in operation. Okay, I have another one drawn lower, but I think this is a bigger one, roughly. And so this is where I'm looking to go long, to cover short and go long. So because of how fast things are dropping, that could certainly happen today or within the next 24 hours. Okay, so if we start getting close to the low 7Ks, I'm gonna have to end this session. So, and then what I also have is obviously oversold stochastics. Now, what I have here is this. I guess you could call this a trap of some kind. And this triangle to me is what's going on. And so I don't think it'll break this time, but I think it will break the next time it reaches it. So I'm looking for, this is what I'm planning to do. And I want to plan to do it and then basically just wait to execute on my plans. I'm not trading in the moment. Do you understand? I'm doing all my work and my analysis up front so that in the moment I know exactly what to do instead of in the moment thinking like, you know, what's going on and trying to make sense of it. I've already made sense of it, so I can act quickly and know exactly what to do, and I'll have the conviction to be able to do it instead of hesitating. Does that make sense? That's very important. As an overall, can you hear me? No. Hello? Hello?
더 좋은 신발의 발견을 위해 발품을 아끼지 말자. 우리가 만드는 신발의 발전을 위해 발상을
Hello?
멈추지 말자.
Hello?
모든 고객의 발걸음이 행복에 닿는 발돋움이 되도록 한 발 앞서 모으고 만들자. 단 한 명을 위한 세상의 모든 신발 ABC 마트.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear my voice? Hello? Hello? Okay. So, you know, Nuno, we'll see how it goes. You know, I want to do, you know, I think it'll be very, I want to, and I think it'll be very good for you to see how I go about things, because I remember when we were doing this mentoring thing before, and like, hold on. I remember when we were doing mentoring before, and you like had all these questions that it wasn't really, like, it was taking much longer than it should for me to address them because your processes were wrong. Like, you kind of were not going about things properly. And so watch me, and then also ask me questions, and I'll address your questions, okay? But what you have to understand is what's very important is process, okay? Having a good process of how to go about things. Okay? And you don't really have a good process, which is understandable. Figuring out the process of how to make money actually is very difficult, and by yourself it can take forever to figure out. And even when I would learn, like, you know, when I would learn, it took me a while to actually understand it, and to a point where I could do it, and I understood it like intuitively, because for a long time I didn't understand it, and I had all these hang-ups. Like, I didn't think I needed to plan. I thought it was, I wanted to learn how to just trade in the moment and just, you know, adjust in the moment, and it's not smart because there's too much information to process. And so I want to do my analysis in the beginning, figure out exactly what I'm going to do and where I'm going to do it, because in the moment I'm not going to necessarily know where I should be taking actions, where I need to be covering, where I need to be going long. If I plan that ahead though, I've planned it out, and then in the moment I don't focus on doing all my analysis. In the moment I focus on executing like these like very like perfect or near perfect plans, like perfect analysis plans, where all the things are stacked up in my favor. Does that make sense? And if I trade in the just watch in the moment, I'm gonna be suckered into a lot of things that are not like in ideal locations, but you know, I'm gonna get sucked into the price action. You know how like you can just start looking at prices and get sucked into taking trades that if you had really thought things through, you kind of know you shouldn't. Okay. I can't, no, I cannot hear you. Okay, this is not like, this is a broadcast. This isn't a two-way, this isn't like a phone conversation. So you can type in, alright? But it's too much to have like a two-way conversation. If you want to do that, you can, I mean, like, it's a lot more work for me. And obviously this is free. So, you know. it's a lot more just observe, and I'll kind of explain, and you know, you can ask questions and type into the chat, but I'll answer as you know as I get to them. Okay. So I want to start with Bitcoin because it is the main driver of everything. Okay, so if you want to trade, you know, moving to cryptos is not a bad bet. You know, for especially for swing trading, because I know that's what you like to do. You know, what's great is that I'm short. Okay, and if I see like Bitcoin start dropping into the low 7Ks, I'm going to have to cover and like end this, and then so I can manage my positions, because I'm gonna need to close all my shorts and go long. Right now it's okay, so you know I have time for this. But what's great is that you know, it's not just one-way market; it's a two-way market now, and so there's longs and shorts. I'm certainly biased to the short side. Hold on. Okay, so you want to start with, so you know, I do recommend like even considering Bitcoin, because you know, like you might have some money, you might have like $200, like you know, $1,000. You can easily turn that. You can easily turn that like into 1,500 or like 2,000 if you short properly or long properly, because the way cryptos move, like you can go long and hold it for like a week, and it'll trend really well. Okay, so you know, I want to start with hold on. Okay, sorry, I'm just typing messages for like work related. But I want to start, you know, I think the tendency is to want to look at the short term, which because they're more exciting. But what I want to do is look at a longer term chart and re-go over it. And the reason is, I look at this chart, this big Bitcoin chart, and it's a daily chart, but and it's not really any different, except you know there's a big red candle for today. It's not really any different than it was yesterday. But you know what's important is that hold on. Hold on for 1 sec. All right. Nuno, I don't know if you're doing this, but it's very important to redo it because there are little things that will have changed, and I might look at things a little differently, and those little things make a big difference because everyone looks at the main charts, but to get an advantage over other people, which is essentially what I have to do, I have to ferret out these little things that are different. Okay? Do you understand? Just say okay if you do, because then I know that you're actually there. Alright, okay, you're there. I see you're typing. So you want to re-go over your charts, alright? It's very important, you know, because that also will give you confidence to be able to take things, right? One big problem that you might have, and I think you probably do, is price gets to an area you're sort of looking at and it looks, you know, you want to buy and it looks really bearish and you're like, oh, like, and you're scared, and it's because you lack confidence, and that confidence is something you don't have enough of to take it because you are not strongly convinced of going long, because you're now because the thoughts in your head, the analysis you have is not well done, and you know it, and so you there's a lot of room to doubt yourself. So you need to do the analysis to the point where like you're like totally sure of what your plans are and what you're gonna do, so that in the moment there's no hesitation. You take it when it meets all the criteria that you need. You just do it because you know everything you need to know. You're not missing anything. Does that make sense? That really is, I would probably say, the most important aspect of doing well in trading. Planning ahead, because in the moment you need to be able to focus. You need to focus on executing, making sure everything is, like kind of meeting your expectation, meeting the requirements of what you thought you needed for a buy, as opposed to in the moment trying to figure out whether or not you should buy. And you're going to be overwhelmed, plus the emotion, because you're uncertain and price is dropping when you want in your buy area. you're going to because you don't have like mental confidence in which like what's going on. You don't because you don't know what's going on. The emotion is going to overwhelm you and kind of constrict you and make it very difficult for you to actually take the trades that you need to. And also, it will, not doing the analysis will make you more likely to take trades in areas that you shouldn't, because you'll be like too closely watching like a 15-minute chart, and think, oh well, might go early when it's just like a minor pullback or something. Okay, things turn in major areas, and that's where you need to look at taking trades. The extreme areas, like this support. Okay, not here. Does that make sense? That is the most important part of trading, I think, to do well in trading at all. And I say this because it sounds very simple, but how many people actually do this? They don't. They do it to some degree, but it's not really well. And the people who are successful really do this. Without exception, who do really well. Hello?
Enjoy them.
Okay, Nuno, so that is where you want to get, okay? It's not the ideal isn't where you don't have to do anything and then you just get up and then just like focus on what's going on in the moment. That's sort of like a very lazy way of trying to make money. It's like not putting time into it and hoping you can just get up and trade and make money. It's sort of like, you get out what you put into it, all right? And that's in anything. And if you don't put in any time to like plan ahead and figure out exactly where are the best places to take trades with the lowest risk, with the highest reward, and then just in the meantime, all you have to do is wait. You don't have to sit all day in front of the computer thinking, well, trade opportunity could come anytime. No, you don't have to do that. You plan ahead so that there's only a few places that make sense each day, and then if prices hit any of those, then you take the trade. Okay? So yeah, I mean, you had this triangle, in Bitcoin in December, January. It broke down, and you had obviously huge follow through. Okay? Hold on. You touch me. And then we had that bounce back to the lows, and it basically, by going back to the lows, this trend line formed. Okay, I have two drawing like the last two drops, but then I also have this longer one, which I think is more important. And so, you know, this longer term trend line is a bit lower, but I think it may make sense to cover at the upper one just to be safe. Okay, I don't want to try to like hold for every last bit and then miss out on the bounce. I don't want to do that. So that's what's going on, and you know, there's a very good chance we can just crash down to there today, and I think there's gonna be a big buy there. You know, Litecoin is in a similar situation where it's very close to its trend line lows. Okay, and you know, when that reaches its bottom, is probably where Bitcoin will reach its Bitcoin Cash. You know, you have a very clear, like, you can see how this is not like hard trading. Very clear head and shoulders. Hold on. Very clear head and shoulders on this daily chart. Shoulder, hedge, shoulder, neckline retest, and then sell off. So that's very textbook, and that's what's going on. I am expecting lower, but if Bitcoin drops, you know, to 500 bucks, and you know, Bitcoin Cash only drops like 1,000 or $100, then, you know, then I'll have to buy both because Bitcoin's in control. And so if Bitcoin reaches its target but the others don't, I might have to. I'll probably cover and go long because I'd rather cover early than to get the extra last bit. Okay. You know, Ripple is or Ethereum is obviously a big one, and you also had a head and shoulders here, very clear, right? My mouse is really giving me problems. Oh my god. Head, shoulder, shoulder, and then just like a huge breakdown. And this is projecting, you know, if I take the distance of the neckline to the top of the head, and that's how you measure these things, it's a little over 600 to the top, which came at a little over 800. So so what that projects is about a 200 pip drop from the neckline. It's hard to say. Is the neckline the upper trend line or the lower one? Usually I would say the lower one, but I'd probably want to be conservative. I mean, they're fairly close enough, where basically they're targeting about the mid 400s. Okay, but that's, you know, like a 20% drop, and Bitcoin only needs to drop like 6% to reach its low. So either you're going to have Ethereum not hit its support, or you know, or it's gonna tank while Bitcoin only drops a little. But I'm almost inclined to just wait for Bitcoin to Ethereum to drop to the 500s, because if I see this, I have this like support level here and that comes in right around 500, and that probably makes more sense that it would stop there given that support, and then also you know, another 20% drop in Ethereum is going to be very hard if Bitcoin is only dropping 6%, you know. So that's where I got to decide this now, because in the moment I'm not gonna know what to do if I don't think about this right now. In the moment I'm gonna think, well, you know, it's gonna look so bearish, I'm gonna want to hold it. Probably. Only I'll see it bounce and I'll miss out and I'll be freak out and I'll want to chase it up. Like, that thing happens if I don't know what I'm doing. If I don't know what I'm gonna do. If I know what I'm gonna do now, though, at the moment I'm just gonna check a few things and then I'll be focused on making sure I execute properly. And that execution is based on top quality knowledge, like full knowledge that I'm getting right now. Does that make sense? Because I get that full knowledge now, I don't need to get it at that point. Does that make sense? So that support is established already. I don't have to decide, is that support gonna hold there? Because when price gets to support, it doesn't look like support's gonna hold. Do you notice that? Like, the tendency is emotionally to think, oh, it's gonna break, but it usually doesn't. Right? So I don't want to get caught up in that emotion. I want to think very rationally based on where I think most people are going to be buying, and it seems like most people are going to be buying there and covering there. Okay. Hold on. So, you know, I'm gonna look at that. You know, a good MT4 platform or a broker is, I'm using FX Open because they have the 6 biggest FX or cryptos: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ripple, and Dash. And those are like the, you know, the ones that I tend to look at most. And then apart from those, I'll look at like go to Crypto Watch. If you just type in Crypto Watch, you'll find it into Google, and I'll look, and there I'll get charts of a lot of smaller coins that, you know, FX brokers like don't offer for charting, but that are also important because I wanna get as much information as possible. But there's a lot of other brokers that offer other things. So I have an AvaTrade account, and on AvaTrade I get EOS, which is another big one. And so basically I want, you know, I might get a lot of good, I get the most important information from Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, those two. But everything is highly correlated. Like there's 90% correlation. Like it's very infrequent. Like you'll never see one, almost never see like, or it's very rare to see one coin rising while everything else is falling. So my analysis is on everything. Okay. And so this is advantageous because if I see very bearish patterns on like every single top 10 coin of the biggest market cap coins, very likely everything's bearish. If I'm doing my analysis on Bitcoin, I'm not sure, like it could be bullish or bearish, I can look at Ethereum, Litecoin, and Dash, and Ripple, and Bitcoin Cash to figure out what's going on. Does it make sense? Though I should need to organize these charts more. Hold on. So I went over the Ethereum chart. One thing I didn't do is go over volume. Volume is really important. So volume tells you like how many people are buying or selling and whatever. Extremely, extremely important.
Welcome to 진짜 for real class. Learn from the real. 저는 6살 때 그 미국에 이민 가가지고 28살 때 다시 왔어요.
Is volume. So again, going back, I just closed it. But you have to learn how to use volume, because volume can tell you so much information. So I'm looking at volume. This is a Monero chart. So one thing I'm noticing, do you see it in this chart? Anything about volume? Do you notice anything? Can you tell me? Okay, if you notice how tall the average candle bar is, it's tall. As price, you have little spikes, but as price is rising, or as price is falling, you have declining volume. So what does that mean? That means fewer people are participating in the sell the lower price goes, which makes sense because it's getting close to support. Which probably means that soon you're gonna get, you know, not many people at all selling. Okay. They can be in breakouts, but is this necessarily, like, I guess this is a small spike. But look at this volume spike. And price was flat, right? You had this volume spike, right? But after price was flat for several days. So you you know, you have to be careful. And here, when you say things like that, the other thing you have to keep in mind is if there's a lot of volume at the start of a move, you'll know. You don't have to see the volume because you'll look at this candle, right? It's very big, a lot of selling here after this big rise up. You know there was a lot of volume and how fast that kind of candle is. I don't need to see the volume there. Okay? I don't need to see that. I can see it from the candlesticks. But what I cannot see is this. I cannot see a slow, steady decline in volume. And that's real, it's factual. Fewer people are selling. Now when Monero gets to this lower trend line, this is where I'm gonna buy. Okay? Hold on. And the other thing that's important is the major falls have started from the top of this trend line, I've noticed, obviously. And we're only like in the middle of this channel, which means there's still a lot to go to the downside potentially. I mean, you know, but not a lot, but like there's still room for a good fall in a lot of these other cryptos. Okay, so you know. I mean, if I look at Monero, do I, like, to go long Monero, I would have to bet that this channel will break on the next upswing. Do I necessarily think that will happen? Maybe. You know, the next upswing, I think, could, you know, has a good chance of You know, in some ways this looked like a bull flag, but it never broke up. I mean, the other problem with being a bull flag is that the angle is too steeply down, and so it doesn't look like a minor pullback where you'll have like a huge jump up. I guess the angle is a little too steeply down. But we're reaching very close to support. That's the buy area. Hoping for something like that, maybe to a lower level, at which point I'd want to sell. And then I think this lower area is going to break. Okay. And can I discern some kind of upper target based on the chart? Yeah, I guess so. Like a rough trend line. Sure. So that my target would be that upper trend line. So if I long at around 150, that might be hoping for too much. Like maybe 160 or something. It might not reach 150. My target might be like 230. So that's a good gain. Okay. Are we gonna get a pullback? Certainly after a day like today, maybe. I mean, look at the pattern. You had a big day and then big drop, and then you had pullback, consolidation, and then a big drop. So you might have that consolidation for like several days before that last drop to the lows. Okay, and certainly we're below the daily Bollinger Band, so usually if it's below, it'll kind of come back within, which it's doing, and that might be it for today. So if you notice, Bollinger Bands are important. Like if they go outside, they're less likely to they're likely to pull back, and you know, and until they're kind of within range, within the boundaries, and then and you know, people will cover when they see that. I mean, it certainly looks like it, right? It does. So or whether they do or don't, that's just the way the prices tend to behave in response to what people actually do, because they notice, I guess, it's dropped too much too fast or something. And then when Bollinger Bands are closed against price, like here, price won't break that almost always. That's not the case here, though. Maybe on a 4-hour chart or an hourly chart, it could be. That is Bitcoin again. You know, Litecoin is kind of a dog. I wish I didn't short this one. It hasn't dropped as much as the others. And how long has it move been in Bitcoin Cash? Well, again, I'm targeting the 700s in Bitcoin Cash, which puts it right around this these prior lows, which is a very good target. Actually, though, these lows are in the 700s, but these lows come in the 800s. And even though the Head and Shoulders projects in the 700s, I might just look to go long closer to the 800s. And again, so long as it's somewhere at least in the 800s, I'd want to go long. And again, more of that will also depend on Bitcoin and what Litecoin does, etc. Alright. Do you have any questions so far? I mean, I want to look out on it, zoom out on Bitcoin Cash. I mean, on this weekly chart, you obviously see these big spikes up, which are fucking ridiculous. Like how crazy the mania was. But you kind of had this like head and shoulder situation here. It didn't hold, and it ended up having this big rally like short cover, and it kind of negated this head and shoulders, but this smaller head and shoulders is taking place now. And see, here's something I didn't notice before. I noticed a while ago, but I forgot. See, from re-looking at these charts, I'll pick up these important details. Not details, but they're big things. This, right? And so that could be the low in Bitcoin Cash, and this will help me figure out where I need to close my shorts. So if Bitcoin Cash reaches it in the next couple of days, where does this project? Low 700s. If there's a consolidation here, it could be like mid 700s, which is also, as I said, the target that I had in mind. So I'm hoping it reaches there, because that means I'll make more on my short. And it will also mean if this breaks to the downside eventually, which I think it will provide a very good shorting opportunity. Like, it'll be a very clear breakdown. If something like this happens, like retest, and then pull back, and then break, and then this is a total, that's like the amazing short. Okay. Nuno, I have a question. So what are you doing? Are you looking for work, or what's going on? What kind of job? Like at another broker? Is it hard? I mean, I actually a while back I tried to find a job at a brokerage doing like technical analysis stuff, and it was very hard. There weren't a lot of openings, but it was for specific functions. So it might, if you want to look within another area of brokerage, that might help. Way easier. Are you living alone, or do you have roommates, or you have like family to live with? Do you have a lot of friends interested in trading, or like traders or anything like that, or struggling traders? Gave up. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's very easy to want to give up. I would say, Nuno, the planning is the most important thing you have to learn to do. If you can do that and only take trades that within the areas of your plan, you're likely to succeed long term. If you don't learn to do that, you just probably won't. The people that I know who don't really plan a lot, they don't make much. They're scalpers, and there's like a limit to how much they can make. I've never met someone who didn't plan, or known someone who didn't plan ahead and execute within their areas, who was extremely successful and like really wealthy from trading. The best traders I know do that, and that's why they're the best, or a big part of it, a key reason, and without that they wouldn't be the best. Okay? If you don't do that and re-go over your charts each day, weekly, like not necessarily weekly every day, but daily, 4 hour, and then build plans only on the 4 hour daily charts. Don't get lost in the noise in 15 minutes. Because it's not necessarily noise, but you don't want to be taking trades based on 15-minute charts. Unless they're in the areas, the 4 hour daily chart areas that you had already planned as key reversal areas. Key support and resistance. Does that make sense? Otherwise, price will be in the middle of nowhere in a chart, and it'll look like it could hold. And sometimes it will hold, but a lot of times it won't, and so you'll get destroyed doing that. And also, you're not, because they're also in the middle of nowhere, you're gonna have less conviction about holding them. So even if they work, you're a lot more likely to bail out earlier and not get the gains that can offset the losses from when those middle zone trades, when a lot of them don't work. And if you get stopped out on those, you're more likely to not get into the trade once it reaches the big area of support or the big area of resistance where you should be taking the trade. Does that make sense? You have to know how not to take trades. That's very important. It's like, did you ever see that movie Rounders with Matt Damon, the poker movie? Like Johnny Chan, there's that video about Johnny Chan. He basically has like this monster hand, and and he basically is just checking, pretending that he doesn't have shit. And so if he does that, there's a chance that Eric Seidel also doesn't have much, and Eric Seidel won't bet a lot. And because Johnny Chan isn't raising every on the you know, the river and the fourth hand, whatever they're called, on the turn, because he's not putting more money in, there's a chance that even when they get to the end and Eric Seidel, you know, puts money in, that Johnny Chan, like, it won't be enough money and Johnny Chan won't be able to put in a lot. So like without causing Eric Seidel to fold. Okay, so basically it's like he has a monster hand, but he's willing to make almost nothing from it for the chance that his opponent will go all in, thinking that Johnny Chan has like no good cards, and that Johnny Chan will fold so that Eric Seidel will take the money in the middle, the pot. But he's one of the best all-time poker players, and he's one of the best because he is willing to not make money, or to give up making a small amount of money, or give up making a middling amount of money for the opportunity to get a huge amount. And that's why he won. He won that. He got his opponent to go all in. He called it. He had like one of the best hands, and he won the World Series of Poker. And people who are worse players wouldn't have that patience. Does that make sense? The patience is really important. But to have that patience, you have to know what you're waiting for. You have to know why you're waiting. Not just to be patient with anything, but if you know that there's huge support at a certain point, and that's where things are likely to turn, you'll know you have to be patient to wait for that. If you don't do that planning ahead of time, if you don't know that, you're not going to be able to wait for that. Or you might have some idea, but because you haven't thoroughly gone through it, you're not going to have enough patience and conviction to be able to wait. So patience is very tied to planning and careful planning and analysis ahead of time. Okay? And then it will give you the confidence to take that trade and the confidence to wait also. Okay? But that confidence is earned each day. It's not there the next day. Like, if you have it today, it's not there the next day. When prices get to because you're going to forget some things, and then you're going to have some doubt. And that's going to eat your confidence. A little bit of doubt will create a lot of hesitation, and that will cause execution problems. Or not getting in at all, or getting in, doubting yourself because it's not going immediately, and then you get out only to see price go up. Like, that happens to you, right? Maybe not to you, I don't know, but it happened. That was a huge problem of mine, and it still is, if I'm honest. And I have to, the last most important thing I have to focus on is that my biggest demon was wanting to over leverage. I finally learned. I was trading two different accounts. One account, I was using no leverage. The other account, I was using a lot of leverage. I placed more or less the same trades. And in the account where I used zero leverage, I had like a 36% return. And with a lot of leverage, I had a very small return. It was about 10%. And so that was like that was kind of when I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna do this again. When I finally saw it clearly with my own eyes, that using more leverage caused me to make less money because it makes me more emotional. It makes me less able to get out of trades. Like, if I have a lot of leverage, I don't want to get out of the trade. I'm like, oh, if I get out, I'll lose so much. Or like switching becomes very hard. It's like flipping to the other side. Whereas if I have very little leverage on, or no leverage, it's very easy to get out. Be like, okay, this doesn't. I need to get out of this trade. I'm wrong or something like that. These kinds of problems, using leverage compromises my ability to be rational and make changes that I know I need to make. And brings emotion into my thought process, which is like, once that happens, it's kind of already over. Like, I'm not gonna do well. Even though I wish I could. Does that make sense? So leverage was the biggest problem that, to a large extent, I've slain. And I'm always gonna have that temptation to it, but now I know that as like leverage is attractive because at a very simplistic basis, if I just think very linearly, that means I'll make more money. If I'm right. But it doesn't take into account the emotion that comes in, the compromise of my analysis ability, inability to maneuver positions properly, all the things that I need to do to make money. I'm not going to be able to do well. So it's going to cause me often to either lose money or make much less than if I use no leverage. And it's just something I have to accept, you know. Leverage is temptation because very simplistically it sort of means, well, I'm doing well now. If I just add more leverage, I'll do really well. But, you know, emotionally things change. Fear comes in, greed comes in, excitement comes in, and I don't want to have those things when I'm trading because I need to think very objectively and impartially and be able to kind of detach myself, I guess, to a degree from the results of my trading. Like, I want to be able to trade as if I'm like looking at it from a third-person perspective. If that makes sense. Like if I'm outside my body and watching myself trade. Or just observing. Does that make sense? The more leverage, the more in it I am, and more like self-involved I am. And I kind of want to be like selfless in a certain way where I like disidentify from my ego and just identify more with the observer. Like in meditation, you kind of learn to do that. Which is why meditation helps. It makes you more objective and you can observe yourself. Like I don't want to be stuck in my fear, greed. I want to be able to observe myself, witness myself feeling these things, but not be consumed by it. And I don't want to even have that fear and greed, and I'm gonna have those things if I use a lot of leverage. The more leverage I do, the more that's gonna come in. So I have to use enough leverage to a point where I'm not gonna have that stuff come in, affect my maneuverability. I'm gonna, you know, if I have more leverage, I'm gonna want to justify bad things that I know I shouldn't be doing. I'm gonna want to jump into a trade early because I'm gonna have more of a fear of missing out. I'm gonna have more FOMO, I'm gonna have more fear of missing out. Because if I use like triple leverage in cryptos, well, if I miss this move up, I'm gonna totally miss on like, you know, like a 60% gain if I think Bitcoin's gonna go up 20%. Well, I don't want to miss that. Maybe I'll just sell for 50%. That's so awesome. I'll get in early. Price will drop further to support, and because I'm super leveraged, I'll be down a huge amount, and I'll freak out, and I'll just be thinking about, oh, what if I lose it all? Like lose a huge amount if it breaks lower. I'm more likely to get out only to see price go up. Like it's a big mess. It's a big mess. Yeah, leverage is... No successful trader uses a lot of leverage. Jim Rogers uses no leverage. Warren Buffett says something very good, which is if you're good enough to make money trading or investing, you don't need leverage, and if you're not good enough to make money trading or investing, you have no business at all using leverage. So yeah, I mean, ultimately I want consistent gains, and that's what the game is. It's not about making a huge amount necessarily with a small amount. I don't need to do that. If I'm trading and my results are good, and because they're consistent and good, and they'll be more consistent with less leverage, and my downside will be a lot smaller with less leverage. I'll have less big downswings, or I'll have very few. That's what will attract a lot of people giving me money. And then on an objective basis, I'll make more money because I'll be trading a lot more assets. But not only that, in my experience, I make more money with less leverage. Which sounds weird, but because at face value, that doesn't seem like it would be the case. But it just doesn't take into account that using leverage messes up my thinking process, my thinking ability, and it introduces emotion into the whole process that a lot of times are more powerful than my ability to stick to a mental game plan. And make rationalization and self-justification more of kind of mental creatures that come in. If that makes sense. All right. See you.